The Texas sky that night blazed like a cosmic painting, millions of twinkling stars stretching across the vast field near SpaceX headquarters in Boca Chica. A frigid night wind swept through, carrying the dry, red dust scent and a faint metallic tang from the rocket launch pads a few miles away. Æ A-Xii, A-12, a boy nearing 5 with messy light brown hair and big round eyes like twin little planets, sat huddled on a flat rock in the desolate field. His small star-printed backpack, a gift from his father, Elon Musk, rested snug in his lap, clutched tight like a protective shield. He wore a faded SpaceX t-shirt and jeans torn at the knees, his tiny sneakers caked with red dust from the hurried steps he took escaping the temporary house near the rocket test site, where he was staying with Elon in late February 2025. X didn't remember how long or how far he'd walked. His short legs ached with exhaustion, and the cold seeped through his thin shirt, making him shiver in waves. But he didn't care. He just wanted to run, to get far away from the feeling of being forgotten, a feeling he'd tried to push away for months. In his mind, the memory of that evening replayed like a glitchy film. Elon standing in the corner of the room, yelling into the phone during a late meeting, "No, I need the Starship ready in 3 months, no exceptions." His eyes never once turning toward him. The nanny, a woman whose name he couldn't even recall, quietly left the room, leaving him alone with the plastic spaceship model he was piecing together. And his mom, Grimes, was somewhere far off, Vancouver, he'd heard his dad say, recording a new album, promising to call back on FaceTime, but forgetting, like so many times before. "I'm nothing to them," X whispered, his childish voice dissolving into the night wind. He hugged the backpack tighter, his small hands trembling as he pulled out the compass Elon had given him during one of those rare times they sat together at the SpaceX workshop. "So you can always find your way, no matter where you are," his dad had said. But now, in the pitch-black darkness, the compass was just a useless toy in his grasp. A chocolate bar he'd stuffed in his pocket had melted too, leaving a sticky smear on his fingers, but he didn't eat it. He wasn't hungry, just empty. A few miles away, inside the sleek modular home beside the SpaceX facility, Elon Musk paced back and forth across the wide living room, his expensive leather shoes clacking rhythmically against the wooden floor. Light from the overhead chandelier spilled across his face, highlighting the sharp, cold features and piercing eyes often seen at major press briefings. He wore a simple black shirt, sleeves rolled up, one hand gripping a phone, his voice booming through the speaker as he directed an engineer on the other end. "If you guys don't speed this up, we're going to lose our shot with NASA. I want results, not excuses." But then, amidst his growling, an unnatural silence stopped him cold. He turned to the corner of the room where X usually sat playing with the spaceship models he'd brought back from the workshop, a little nook filled with plastic pieces and paint that the boy adored. But the small chair was empty. The Starship model lay scattered on the floor, one wing broken and unfinished. "X," Elon called, his deep voice echoing in the wide space. No answer came, only the wind whistling through the window cracks. He strode quickly to the hallway, eyes scanning every corner of the house. "X," he called again, louder, but only stillness replied. He burst into the spare living room where the nanny, a middle-aged woman named Sarah hired through a service, was sitting, watching TV, remote in hand, eyes glued to a reality show. "Where's the boy?" Elon yelled, his voice like a small explosion that jolted Sarah. I thought he was with you," she stammered, jumping up, the remote clattering to the floor. Elon didn't wait for more. He bolted outside, his leather shoes kicking up red dust, eyes darting through the darkness, shrouding the property. His heart pounded fast. Not the thrill of watching a rocket launch succeed or fail, but real fear. The fear of a father realizing he might have lost the most precious thing he had. He yanked out his phone, hands shaking as he dialed Grimes, heedless that it was midnight in Vancouver. The line rang twice before Grimes' voice came through, sleepy but instantly panicked when she heard Elon shout through the speaker, "Claire, X is missing! He's not here!" "What?" Grimes screamed back, her voice breaking like an off-key note in an unfinished song. She leapt from her bed in her small Vancouver apartment, hands trembling as she clutched the phone, her green, tangled hair falling over her face, the screen's glow lighting up her teary red eyes. How did he go missing? What were you doing that you didn't notice him? He's only 5, Elon. Don't blame me, Elon roared, his voice quaking with anger and panic, gripping the phone like he wanted to crush it. You're not here either. You promised to call him tonight, remember? He sat waiting for an hour. He heard Grimes gasp through the line, then choke up, tears distorting her voice. I was recording. I didn't think. Right, you didn't think. Elon cut her off, his voice sharp as a blade. And neither did I, but now's not the time to argue. I need to find him. He heard Grimes sob through the phone, her cries like a mournful tune nobody wanted to hear. I'll fly there right now, she said, her voice shattering. Don't lose my baby, Elon, please. In Vancouver, Grimes rushed to the airport in a near-panic state. In the taxi racing to the airport, Grimes called Elon back, her voice trembling like a guitar string about to snap. Have you found him yet? Please say yes. She heard the wind howling through the phone, then Elon's heavy breathing. Not yet, he replied, his voice hoarse, almost desperate. I'm looking. He can't have gone far. Grimes clutched the taxi seat tight, her nails digging deep into her skin. He's just a kid, Elon. How could you let this happen? She screamed, tears spilling onto her coat, soaking into wet streaks. Elon went silent for a second, then his voice dropped, nearly a whisper through the Texas wind. Claire, I'm sorry. I should have paid more attention to him. I don't know how to be a dad. That confession hit like a punch in the air, making Grimes stop crying for a moment. She'd never heard Elon say that. He was always the confident one, the man who could solve any problem, from rockets to electric cars, but now he was just a scared father. Me neither, she answered, her voice softening through the tears. I kept thinking he was fine with you. We both messed up. They fell quiet. Only the wind from Texas and the taxi's engine from Vancouver blending through the phone. Find him, Elon, she yelled through her sobs. I'll get there as fast as I can. She bolted out on old boots, her green, tangled hair whipping in the cold wind as she ran to the ticket counter. I need the earliest flight to Texas, she shouted at the clerk, slamming her hand on the counter, tears rolling down her cheeks. The clerk glanced at her, recognizing the familiar face from those weird music videos, but said nothing, just quickly tapped the keys to find a flight. While Grimes frantically booked the earliest flight from Vancouver to Texas, carrying nothing but her passport, phone, and a thin coat, Elon Musk stood frozen for a few seconds as Grimes's voice, "Find him, Elon," echoed over and over in his head, slicing through the stillness inside the modular home near SpaceX headquarters in Boca Chica. He didn't wait longer. His expensive leather shoes charged across the wooden floor, footsteps booming like thunder. "Sarah!" he yelled at the trembling nanny in the next room. "Call the security team, now! X is missing!" Without waiting for her response, he bolted to the garage, leapt into the Tesla Cybertruck, and slammed the start button, the electric engine roaring fiercely before rocketing into the dark field, tires carving deep red grooves into the dirt. The Cybertruck's headlights tore through the Texas night, twin beams of searing white light cutting across tall grass and jagged rocks. "X!" Elon bellowed, his voice shattering in the wind rushing through the wide-open window, sounding like a wild animal cornered. He floored the gas until the truck shook violently, tires crushing dry bushes, red dirt spraying like blood from a gaping wound. His bloodshot eyes scanned the darkness like a hawk hunting prey, but there was no sign of the boy. Under Boca Chica's star-filled sky, X sat curled up on the rock, arms wrapping his knees, tears streaming down his chubby cheeks now streaked with red dust. He heard crickets chirping and wind rustling through the tall grass, but no call from his dad or mom. "I'm lost," he whispered, his childish voice quivering, eyes gazing up at the sky, as if begging the stars he'd dreamed of reaching to save him. He pulled the small compass from his backpack, but in the pitch-black night, the faint starlight wasn't enough to read its needle. The melted chocolate bar in his pocket was now just a sticky smear on his hand, but he didn't eat. He had no strength left to try. He missed his dad, those rare times he sat with him in the workshop, talking about Mars with a voice full of passion, eyes sparkling like he'd pull the whole universe down for him to see. He missed his mom, those strange songs she sang when he couldn't sleep, her voice soft like a hug through the FaceTime screen. But now they weren't here, and X felt like a fallen star nobody would find. Less than 5 minutes later, sirens wailed in the distance. Elon's private security team, 6 men in black, roared up in 2 armored SUVs, red flashing lights slashing across the field. "Find the boy now!" Elon shouted through the radio, pounding the steering wheel, his voice like a wartime command. "Don't let me lose him!" The guards leapt out, flashlights piercing every corner, footsteps pounding in sync with the barking of working dogs echoing through the night. One yelled into the radio, "Boss, we've alerted local police. They're sending a chopper." Elon jerked the truck to a stop, tires skidding long across the dirt, red dust billowing like a war cloud. He jumped out, leaving the engine running, the Cybertruck's headlights blazing ahead like a desperate flame in the endless dark. "Æ A-12, he roared, his voice now a primal scream, ringing across the field, drowning out the SUV's engines and the dog's barks. He charged into chest-high grass, hands clawing wildly, ripping through dry branches like he was punishing them for hiding his son. Thorns shredded his vest sleeves, blood oozing from deep scratches on his arms, but he felt nothing but the ache in his chest, the terror that he'd lost X forever. The police helicopter's roar thundered from the horizon, its high beams slicing across the field like a giant sword, making the darkness tremble. "This is Boca Chica PD," a cold, sharp voice blared through the loudspeaker. "We're searching for a 5-year-old boy, Æ A-12 Musk. Report any signs immediately." The chopper's blades growled, mingling with distant police sirens, turning the desolate field into a chaotic battlefield. A frenzied search the whole nation would soon witness on breaking news. Elon crumpled amid the tall grass, slamming his fist into the red dirt, dust swirling like an angry cloud. "I'm a damn lousy father," he bellowed, his voice shattered, tears bursting out, streaking down his dust-smeared face. The first time in his life, he felt powerless against something money or genius couldn't control. He shot up, lunging forward, hands tearing through the grass, like he'd ripped the whole field apart to find his son. "X, answer me!" he screamed, the cry so fierce it drowned out the helicopter, echoing like a plea hurled to the stars above. Suddenly, from afar, a faint sound rose, a tender, trembling sob, piercing the storm of noise like an arrow. "Dad?" X's voice called, tiny but sharp, cutting through the wind and sirens. Elon whipped around, eyes wide, breath halting on the razor's edge between life and death. "X!" he roared, charging toward the cry like a bolt of lightning, legs pounding through the tall grass with the strength of a man reclaiming his lifeline. The chopper's spotlight swept over, illuminating a small figure huddled on a rock, arms clutching a backpack tight, face streaked with tears and red dust under the cold white glare. Elon surged forward, collapsing before the rock, his trembling hands pulling X into his arms, holding him tight, as if he were the last thing left in the world. "You scared me to death," he whispered, voice choked, tears rolling down his cheeks, mixing with red dust and soaking into the boy's hair. X nestled into his dad's chest, childish sobs blending with Elon's ragged breaths. "I thought you didn't need me," he said, his voice breaking in the icy Texas night. Elon gripped X tighter, hand stroking his hair, red-rimmed eyes fixed on that little face. "Never, X," he growled, voice like a vow resounding across the chaotic field. "I'd burn the whole universe to find you. You're everything to me." He bent down, kissing the boy's forehead, the warmth of that kiss a small flame flaring amid the storm, while the helicopter still roared overhead and police lights flickered in the distance. Elon froze, a sensation like an arrow piercing his heart. He leaned down, staring straight into X's big, round eyes. "Never, X," he growled, voice like a vow echoing through the chaotic field. "I need you more than anything, more than Mars, more than SpaceX. You're my most important star." He ran his hand through the boy's hair, those usually rigid, work-hardened hands now strangely gentle, as if afraid to hurt him again. He bent down, kissing his forehead, the warmth of that kiss a small flame flaring amid the storm, while the helicopter still roared overhead and police lights flickered in the distance. 4 hours later, when the private jet touched down at the small airstrip near Boca Chica, Grimes burst through the emergency exit before the crew could fully lower the stairs. She raced across the tarmac, heedless of the skin-searing Texas midnight cold, green hair whipping wild in the wind, boots pounding the ground. Elon's driver waited, ready, and she all but screamed as she leapt into the car. "Get me to Elon, now." When she stormed into the modular home, the sight before her stopped her dead. Elon sat on the sofa, X curled up in his lap, a plate of steaming peanut butter sandwiches on the table in front of them. The boy had drifted off, face still marked with dried tear tracks, but his lips curved in a faint smile. "X!" Grimes cried, rushing to envelop him, tears falling onto his hair like tiny raindrops. "I'm sorry, baby. I won't forget you again," she whispered, hand rubbing his back, feeling his warmth beneath the thin shirt. Elon looked up, eyes red, meeting Grimes's gaze, his voice rough. "I found him. He was out in the field, alone." Grimes nodded, not taking her eyes off X. But then she glanced at Elon, a silent understanding spreading between them. "Don't fight anymore, okay?" X murmured in his sleep, voice small but clear, like a plea from the depths of his little heart. Elon and Grimes locked eyes, a flicker of awkwardness laced with guilt passing through. "Okay," Elon said, voice low but firm, like he was commanding the world itself. "No more fighting." Grimes nodded, pulling X closer, hand rubbing his back. "We'll do better, X, I promise," she said. Then turned to Elon, a weak smile breaking through her tears. "Both of us." That night, they spread a big blanket across the backyard of the house, lying together under the Texas sky full of stars that X loved. X lay between his parents, his big round eyes gazing upward, his hand pointing at a brilliant constellation. "What's that, Dad?" he asked, his childish voice still but less shaky now. Elon chuckled softly, pointing at the sky, his voice brimming with the passion he used when talking about grand dreams. "That's Orion's son, one of the mightiest constellations. One day you'll go up there with me." Grimes lay beside him, singing a strange lullaby she'd just made up, her voice lilting like a gentle breeze drifting across the field. "My little star. Don't get lost again," she sang, her hand gripping X's tightly. The boy giggled, his hands clutching his dad's and mom's, and for the first time in months, X felt he was no longer a lost star. He nestled into their embrace, their warmth chasing away the Texas night's chill. And in his sleep, he dreamed of spaceships soaring through the stars, not to escape, but to come home. But this story isn't just about a night when X ran off and was found amidst a Texas field. It's about how a tiny boy with star-bright eyes and a fragile heart pulled two adults, people usually consumed with conquering the cosmos and crafting art, back to the simplest thing: family love. Elon Musk, the man always gazing at distant stars, and Grimes, the woman living in a world of sound and color, had once let their grand dreams dim X's light. They weren't perfect. Their conflicts, the times they broke promises to the boy, were undeniable cracks in their bond. But that night, when X wandered lost in the dark, they realized no rocket, no song mattered more than keeping their little boy safe. The initial anger and blame between Elon and Grimes, those shouts over the phone, those sharp accusations, mirrored the months they'd let work sweep them away, leaving X with strangers and forgotten calls. But when they found him, when their hands held him tight under that starry sky, they learned that love doesn't need fancy words or big promises. It needs presence, listening, and a real tight hug. Things that seem simple but are the hardest for people like them. A-12, the little star in that Texas field, taught his parents a lesson no school or project could. Family isn't a place without cracks, but a place where cracks get mended with love. That night, amid the whistling wind and twinkling stars, they didn't just find X, they found each other, and a reason to do better. not for the universe, but for the small star lying between them. This story is a reminder that in a world full of ambition and chaos, sometimes the greatest thing isn't conquering far-off stars, but keeping the light of those we love from getting lost. And when love is put above all else, even if just for a moment in the dark, it can light up an entire sky where every lost star, no matter how small, finds its way home. If this story has touched your heart, don't forget to share your thoughts about the story and let us know which city you're watching from. We'd love for you to share its message by liking and sharing it with your friends, helping us reach our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers, which means the world to us and allows us to create more meaningful stories for you. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you in our next story.